Hey guys, Nate from the 80/20 Drummer, and for a few weeks I've been looking for a way to incorporate this concept that Josh Waitzkin calls making smaller circles into a lesson. Even Mark Guiliana of 2 years ago was playing around with this minimalism concept in a drum clinic that I believe is from Montreal. Two other drummers that do this super well are my buddy Ollie Bernatchez and the new drummer for Avishai, whose name is Ofri. I'm not going to pronounce his last name correctly. Anyway, I was looking for a way to illustrate this concept, and I couldn't quite figure out an avenue in until my friends over at Drumeo posted a lesson last week called If I Know My Audience, they probably want a completely other side of the coin counterintuitive lesson about a difficult beat that sounds easy. So that's what I'm going to present, and that's the framework that I'm going to give this to you in. So again, my Ollie Bernatchez-esque, Mark Guiliana-esque difficult beat that sounds easy is this. 2, 3, 4. So now, by way of breaking down what makes this beat so difficult to play well, I'm going to take you through a bunch of the concepts that I cover in all of my courses. So what are the components of that beat? First of all, being able to play cleanly on the surfaces of the drums. And what do I mean by playing cleanly? I mean that when you attempt to hit a rim shot, you're not slop chopping. You're actually really hitting a rim shot. And when you're intending to play two surfaces together, they're actually hitting together. So let me give you the sort of primordial ancestor of the difficult beat that sounds easy. And that would just be something like this. 3, 4. Okay, so you see in this beat, even to execute this correctly, you need to have a few things happening because it can sound sloppy. It can sound like... And by the way, this is what I hear a lot of drummers play when they think they're executing high-level stuff. So first and foremost, the hi-hats and the kick drum are together. Second, the hi-hats and the snare drum are together. And third, the rim shot is not on either the rim of the snare drum or the center. It's clean. It's a clean rim shot in the center of the drum. So another good challenge is to play that beat quietly. 3, 4. Okay, so that's playing clean. Challenge number 2 is playing in time. And it's pretty easy for human beings to rush and drag beats, and especially to rush and drag them in key places. So obviously the conventional wisdom is play with a metronome, but you probably won't be able to play that difficult beat that sounds easy unless you can do something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so say you can play it cleanly, say you can play it in time. The next challenge is orchestrating the left foot. What the heck do you do with the left foot? Because if you're going... that requires you to open and close the left foot precisely in time. So the next stage of our primordial evolution from early hominid to evolved human being of a difficult beat that sounds easy would be something like this. 3, 4. So that's fairly basic. I'm just doing this. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 on the hats. But it turns out that's exceedingly difficult to do in time. So you probably want to play this slowly to make sure you're nailing it at every stage. 3, 4. Etc. So is one of the difficult things if you've got a double coinciding with a hi-hat. So there's a warm-up. Slow to fast, etc. Okay, so believe it or not, the next stage to making this more difficult is to remove right-handed notes. Because it's easier to play a beat in time if you give yourself a lot of reference points. For instance, is going to be easier than 3, 4. Because everything that you were playing explicitly is now in your head. You have to keep it in your head. So if our hi-hat beat is this, 3, 4. Next, we want to take out as much of our right hand as we can. So let's just do the right hand on half notes. 3, 4. Okay, so this is another good one to practice with the metronome on the 16th note offbeats, just to make sure you're really laying it in the pocket. And then probably at some point you want to add some offbeats on the open hi-hat. So that will sound something like this. 2, 3, 4. And you'll discover very quickly this is also difficult to do, to make sure you get this open and closing sound exactly right. There's some touch with the right foot so that you're not stomping the hats down either too hard or too soft. Okay, so say you have that nailed and you're playing around with it a little bit, you're practicing with your metronome, and maybe you want to make it into a hemiola, a hemiolized beat, which is instead of a straight 16-beat phrase of 4 groups of 4 beats, it's 2 groups of 6 and a group of 4. So instead of 3, 4. It might be 3, 4. Next, maybe I want to add some variation to the snare drum. Instead of playing it right on the downbeat, I want to play it on the offbeat. So 3, 4. So it's easy to see how from there, by simply varying a couple more things and moving the right hand to an offbeat that I'll have transcribed for you, you can arrive at our template beat. 3, 4. And to bring things finally full circle, you add the left foot so you can free up the right hand and still maintain the time. And you can orchestrate that any number of ways. Another cool way to do it is just on the ride cymbal bell. 3, 4. But I wanted to bring it full circle and actually bring the right hand back to the hats. So both hands are playing on the hats. And now you can kind of see where this Julian-esque, Ollie Bernatchez-esque beat starts to form together and get into place. So 3, 4. And I probably want to practice it slowly with the metronome on offbeats because there are a ton of spaces in there, so I want the time to be cool. So let me play it fast for you, and you're going to see how all of the work we've done over the ensuing several months to get all of these things together, they sort of come out in a distilled fashion. There's an intensity you can't quite put your finger on that comes from having internalized all these timekeeping devices. And that's really what makes people like Mark and Ollie and Afri so explosive in their time, so compelling to listen to. 3, 4. Just kidding. So that's kind of the gist. Difficult beat that sounds easy. And hopefully through this process, I've helped to enlighten you to some of the hidden aspects that really separate the great drummers from the mediocre ones. And I'll link to that Afri clip where he's not playing anything particularly complicated. He's not playing anything that's not in a basic drum beat, but it's just because of that, the Afro-Cuban musicians call it masakote. It's like that internal pulse that's so strong. My channel is the 80/20 Drummer. And if you want to get deeper into these sort of secret but not so secret things that make you a better drummer, I want to point you toward an introductory product I have called the 80/20 Roadmap. Most drummers make some version of the same 3 mistakes, and it's not a big secret. It's the same things we talked about in this lesson. They don't play clean. They haven't internalized timekeeping very well, and their upload speed, their ability to deploy ideas, is restricted. So the 80/20 Roadmap will help you triage your playing and identify these issues in your own playing and give you some steps to get started. Plus, it will jumpstart you into my flagship product, which is the 80/20 coaching course. You'll get a taste of that, and you can move ahead with it if you feel like it. Dudes, this was supposed to be a short one. It went a little longer than I thought, but I think it's been valuable. Once again, want to give a huge thanks, humble thanks to all of the fans who have joined the channel and the old school folks. Thanks again to Dave King for shouting me out. Thanks again for all of the great drummers that I've covered who have like retweeted my stuff or commented on it. That's extremely humbling and flattering, keeps me going. Oh, before I forget, if you're watching this in the summer of 2015, when it comes out, I have a couple of live events coming up. So I took a look at my numbers and I realized that I have more fans in Hong Kong and Taipei than in any other cities. So that's why I'm coming to you. I will be in Hong Kong October 12th through 16th, and I'll be in Taipei the following week. We're planning some kind of meetup, but definitely if you're interested in that, shoot me an email at 8020drummer@gmail.com. We'll figure out how many people are interested. We'll figure out a good space to do it in, etc., etc. Can't wait to meet some of you guys in person and exchange drum ideas with you. Anyway, been fun doing this. One love. See you next week. I was meaning to mention a recent interview that Dave scored with one of my favorite drummers, Mr. Mark Guiliana. And the Mark interview was amazing because Mark is on to like a whole completely different next thing. It's like there was Avishai Cohen Mark, and then there was Now versus Now Mark, there was Beat Music Mark, and now there's just like Beyond Mark. So in honor of Dave King and Mark Guiliana, I thought I would transcribe and play for you just a little bit of what Mark played on Dave's channel, and then maybe you can get a sense for what I'm talking about with this minimalism. So here we go. Right? I mean, wow, just wow.